Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 9 2017 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic last week, it was one of my most overall successful weeks ever in both against the spread and straight up picking. Last week for the Fanatic went 10-3 against the spread, and straight up he had, I believe, his best record ever as a straight up picker. I went 12-1 straight up, so that equals 77% against the spread, and I got 92% of the games right straight up. The only game I got wrong was, ironically, my home team. I picked the Dolphins to win, and they got shut out 40-0, and I believe it was the largest shutout in our franchise's history. And obviously I forgot, just like how the Kansas City Chiefs, just like how the Pittsburgh Steelers had the Kansas City Chiefs number, apparently the Baltimore Ravens had the Miami Dolphins number, because over the last two games, the Miami Dolphins have been outscored 78-6 against the Baltimore Ravens in both home games, by the way. And it's also been over 20 years since the Miami Dolphins have won in Baltimore. So I am very happy about last week. I hope I can parlay this momentum into another great week. It's the second straight 13-game week, as the Chicago Bears, Cleveland Browns, Minnesota Vikings, Pittsburgh Steelers, New England Patriots, and Los Angeles Chargers all have byes this week. So if you have Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Martavius Bryant, Mitchell Trubisky, Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, the Bears defense, Kaiser, Crowell, Le'Veon, Juju Schuster, Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon, Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, or Antonio Gates. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. Alright, so time for my picks against the spread and straight up. So this Thursday, tomorrow, when the 5-2 Buffalo Bills travel to MetLife Stadium to take on the 3-5 New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here -3, and Buffalo straight up. And then on Sunday, when the 4-3 Atlanta Falcons go to the 5-3 Carolina Panthers, the Carolina Panthers are 1.5-point favorites in this game. I like Carolina here -1.5, and Carolina straight up. And then the next game, when the 2-6 Indianapolis Colts go to the 3-4 Houston Texans, the Houston Texans are 13-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here +13, but the Houston Texans straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-4 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 4-3 Jacksonville Jaguars, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Jacksonville here -4.5, and Jacksonville straight up. And then the next game, when the 2-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 5-2 New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here +7, but I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints straight up. And then the next game, when the 5-2 Los Angeles Rams go to the 1-6 New York Giants, the LA Rams are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like the LA Rams here -3.5, and the LA Rams straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-4 Denver Broncos go to the 7-1 Philadelphia Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles are 8-point favorites in this game. I like Denver here +8, but I'll take the Philadelphia Eagles straight up. And then the next game, when the 4-4 Baltimore Ravens go to the 4-3 Tennessee Titans, the Tennessee Titans are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Baltimore here +4.5, but I will take the Tennessee Titans straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-4 Arizona Cardinals go to the 0-8 San Francisco 49ers, the Arizona Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Arizona here -2.5, and Arizona straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-4 Washington Redskins go to the 5-2 Seattle Seahawks, the Washington Redskins are 7-point underdogs in this game. I like Washington here +7, but I'll take the Seattle Seahawks straight up. And then the next game, when the 6-2 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 4-3 Dallas Cowboys. This game is a pick'em, so I like Kansas City here against the spread, and I like Kansas City here straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-5 Oakland Raiders go to the 4-3 Miami Dolphins. The Oakland Raiders are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Oakland here -3, and Oakland straight up. And in the next game, when the 4-3 Detroit Lions, the 3-4 Detroit Lions go to the 4-3 Green Bay Packers. The Detroit Lions are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Detroit here -2.5, and Detroit straight up. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. The Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets. I am taking the Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets because I look at this Buffalo Bills team, and behind the New England Patriots, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Kansas City Chiefs, not in that order, but in those three, I believe the Buffalo Bills are the fourth best team in the AFC, and they are definitely a wild card team in my opinion, and a dark horse Super Bowl contender. Because when you look at the Bills, they have a very consistent defense that lost pieces such as Ronald Darby and Marcel Darius, and they're still winning games. They just added Kelvin Benjamin from the Carolina Panthers for a third and seventh round pick, and I think for the Bills that have had a very huge problem at wide receiver. Jordan Matthews is their leading receiver with 189 yards, and Andre Holmes is their leading receiver in terms of touchdowns with only 3. So getting a guy like Kelvin Benjamin, he may not elevate that receiving core to an elite receiving core, but at least it gives Tyrod Taylor the red zone threat that he needs, that if he can get into the red zone, if Kelvin Benjamin can at least get 40 to 60% of the jump balls that they throw his way, they can be a more productive offense. And Tyrod Taylor's having a great year. He's had 9 TDs and 2 interceptions. He's playing really good game manager type football. And I look at the Bills as a Minnesota Vikings copy in the NFC. Very stout defense, a solid, consistent running game, an underrated and banged up offensive line for a decent part of the year. They've had their ups and downs with that. And they have really not star receivers. At least the Vikings have a tight end in Kyle Rudolph. The Bills, Charles Clay went down with a knee injury. And now they have Nick O'Leary. And I just think, again, just solid, consistent teams. They're not going to wow you offensively, and they don't have quarterbacks that are, the stat pilers and stat dazzlers. But they're consistent game managers that every week you know that they will give you consistent games. And if they don't turn the ball over and can make the timely deep throw or the timely, mid-level throw, they can win games off of their consistency. And that's what I'm going to take here against the Jets, where the Jets, they are a good 3-5 football team, and at this point, nobody would really think the Jets would have 3 wins and 3 other possible wins on their resume with New England, the Dolphins, and now the Falcons. However, with what happened with the Jets game on Sunday, with Matt Forte complaining about carries, and the Jets really over the last few weeks turning back into the Jets' tendencies, where the Jets, gave you that 3 straight game winning streak, and people in New York were saying, hey, maybe we could, hold on. Now, over the last 3 weeks, you've seen the Jet tendencies of either bad breaks or just horrible mistakes costing them close games that they know that they should have won or definitely could have won, but didn't. And I know the Bills are 0-2 on the road this year, but looking at the Bills, they're confident, and they know that going into New York, they'll be extra motivated because last year they got embarrassed by the Jets in the last week of the year, which was Anthony Lynn's first game as a head coach. I think they're going to be motivated with McDermott to go in there and put up another solid game and improve their win streak, get their first win on the road, use LaShawn McCoy steadily, use Tyrod, and take advantage of the Jets' lulls right now because the Jets are turning back into the Jets of, they're no longer the hapless underdog happy story. They're back to the Jets of, we choked the game away in the weirdest way possible or in the most Jet way possible and we'll lose. Sorry, Logan Schiff, shout out to him. But that's why I feel confident in the Bills. Solid, consistent team, playing a team that's playing like its culture. I'll take the solid, consistent team over the Jets' culture, taking it back over the Jets. So that's why I like Buffalo -3 and Buffalo straight up. Next game, Panthers over Falcons. This is really hard. I look at this game as two sides of the ball, which are a great matchup. The Atlanta Falcons offense has a lot of firepower, but it's been underwhelming. And the Panthers defense, They got Luke Kuechly back, and they look like the Panthers' defense that looked like through the first 4 weeks. That shows you how valuable Luke Kuechly is to the Carolina Panthers. However, just watching how that offense was very anemic and pathetic by Cam Newton and the Panthers. Against the Bucs defense of the last week, but gave up 30 points to Tyrod Taylor. Like, it's one of those aspects where, the Panthers and the Falcons, you just don't know what you're going to get. The Falcons could very easily have lost to the Jets last weekend, but they didn't. If the Bucs didn't turn it over 3 times, they could have beat Carolina. But in this situation, I'm going to take the team that's at home and it has the better defense. Because I think with the Panthers, I think if the Panthers can cause 1 or 2 more turnovers, and Matt Ryan's already committed more turnovers than I believe all he did last year, I think the Panthers will be able to capitalize and win this game. But I'd be surprised if the Atlanta Falcons win this game, not at all. Because Carolina's offense over the last couple of weeks has been very dreadful, and if Atlanta can get pressure on Cam, Ryan Khalil may not play again, which is huge for up the middle for like Dontari Poe. The Falcons could win this. In the last couple of years, this game in Carolina, it's been lopsided either way. I think like the last couple of times, it's been like 76-7 was the score for both teams. They split over the last 2 years in significant blowouts. But I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers here because they're at home. I trust that defense more. And when Carolina, they just have had a better resume of where they were able to close games that Atlanta hasn't been able to. And I think, again, if the game gets close, I would trust the Panthers' defense to make one more stop against the Falcons compared to the Falcons trying to move the ball in the Panthers' defense. Should be a great game, and honestly, I hope this game gets moved to Sunday Night Football because nobody really wants to see the Raiders and Dolphins play. But I'm going to take the Panthers here. They're home. Luke Kuechly's back in the defense. And just the Atlanta Falcons and Panthers, I'll take the home team in the defense to beat a struggling, middling offense led by Matt Ryan and Steve Sarkisian. So that's why I like Carolina here, -1.5, and Carolina straight up. Next game, Texans over Colts. I'm going to take the Houston Texans here because Deshaun Watson has won the Rookie of the Year. He's thrown the most touchdown passes through any quarterback's first 7 games in NFL history for a rookie, breaking Kurt Warner's record. He put up 400 yards on the Seattle defense. They put up 500 total yards in offense. That was only the second time in the Pete Carroll era that a quarterback in an offense was able to do that. And he was going shot for shot with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion, in Russell Wilson. So I gained a lot more respect for Deshaun Watson. He's proven that he is a franchise quarterback the Texans can ride, and that over time that he can win a Super Bowl. He definitely has the talent, and with the way he's going, I think a lot of people might expect him to win a Super Bowl if he keeps going this way. The frustrating thing for Deshaun Watson, this is going to be the thing for the Colts, and it's kind of the advantage. The Colts defense doesn't get that many turnovers. Deshaun Watson's already thrown about 8 interceptions. I think he's fumbled another 1 or 2 times, so he's already committed 10 turnovers. If he turned down those turnovers, I guarantee you, without those games went, I think the Texans would have beaten the Seahawks and they would have beaten the Patriots. However, they're playing the Colts, who last year, with Andrew Luck in both games, got swept by Brock Osweiler both times. So now with Andrew Luck not practicing again, he's going to be out this week. I just have faith in the Texans that they'll be able to, control their game pretty well and get Brissett to make a couple more mistakes, or he won't be able to have enough time, especially with that Colts offensive line, and to make as many throws and to be as accurate and as pinpoint as Russell Wilson was last week. I am going to take the Colts to +13 because just like I thought last week at the Bengals, I thought Jacoby Brissett could play better and play more consistent to cover that spread, and kind of the same thing. I think Russell Wilson showed the blueprint of how to beat that Houston defense, and I know it doesn't have Watt and Merciless, and it doesn't. And they tried to get Jeremy Lane, but that failed, and they just lost their left tackle, so that's going to help the Colts pass rush. The Colts pass rush, and I just believe with the Colts that Brissett will play up to his ability again to cover the 13 points. Would I be surprised if the Texans blew out the Colts? No, because the last division home game they played, that's exactly what they did to the Tennessee Titans. So if Indy's defense gets ramrodded and gassed pretty quickly by Watson's offense, I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts cover the 13 points. The Texans cover the 13 points. But I'm going to take the Colts to cover just because I have enough faith in Jacoby Brissett to play another decent game to at least cover the spread. And to be honest, if Brissett doesn't throw that pick six on the 18-yard line, the Colts probably win that football game against the Bengals. So I'm going to trust Brissett to be able to cover the 13 points in a very interesting divisional game with a lot more riding on for the Texans compared to the Colts. So that's why I like Indianapolis here plus 13, but the Texans straight up. Next game, the Jaguars over the Bengals. I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars here just because a couple things. One, it's an odd week. And if you look at the Jags all year, this is what they've been doing. Every even week, they tend to either they tend to play bad, and they tend to play, inconsistent and barely win or not win at all. When it's an odd week, the Jacksonville Jaguars are very dangerous. They have probably, in their 4 wins, the largest margin of victory per win in the NFL. 29-7, 44-7, 30-9, and 27-0. So, that's one of those things where, it's again, when they're on their game, especially with that defense, they can, blow out anybody. And with the addition of Marcel Darius, that is a huge addition. I was surprised that they got him at first because I originally thought that was a luxury type of pick. However, when I looked at their run defense, they were second to last in run defense, and I believe that Marcel Darius fills that hole. But you still have, and Leonard Fournette should be able to play this week, so that's going to help the Jaguars control the clock. And I think Blake Bortles will play well enough to provide the Jaguars enough cover to beat the Bengals. Can the Bengals beat the Jags? Absolutely. I think for the Cincinnati Bengals, they found a bit of their stride, and over the last month, they played decent football. They got a win. They had the last one over the Bills, a very good team. They just beat the Colts. They have a win over the Browns. They almost beat the Packers, and they competed with the Steelers in the first half of that game. To me, when I look at the Cincinnati Bengal team, they could surprise people, by beating Jacksonville, because I think Cincinnati has more of a structure. They have more discipline compared to the Jags, and the Jags are still the young Jags, and if Blake Bortles gets rattled and pressured by the Cincinnati defense, he can basically cost them the game. However, just looking at that Jaguars defense with the additions they have, with the rest they've gained, and the addition of Leonard Fournette back in the backfield, I believe the Jags will be able to win this game. If they don't, then basically Houston will have this division, because Houston should be able to, sweep the Titans, sweep the Jags, sweep the Colts, and then get a couple other wins to kind of solidify their status. I feel like if the Jags win this game, they should be right up there with the Texans for the AFC East. The Titans are still there too, but the problem for you with the Titans is they're dull. The Jags have a pop defense and a popping running game. The Houston Texans have a pop offense led by a quarterback in Deshaun Watson. The Titans are just dull bread. They're mayonnaise and bread. They have a better defense than the Texans do right now, I think, on paper. But they don't have the defense that Jacksonville does, but they don't have the offense that Houston does. So Tennessee is the bland white bread with butter of the AFC South. They're not a horrible team, and they're still in that division race, but nothing excites you about them. They're just bland white bread with butter. It's like a generic, plain team that it's good in some ways, and it's good depending on the depending on the person you talk to. But I feel like if the Jags win this game, they're right back in the division race. True, the Titans have the win over them, but I feel like the Jags, if they can get their offense going and the defense can stay consistent, which it has been, they're a better threat to win that division. So that's all I like Jacksonville here, -4.5, and Jacksonville straight up. Next game, the Saints over the Bucks. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL all year. You would think with a talent roster of Gerald McCoy, the Levante Davids, the TJ Wards, the Brent Grimes, the Quan Alexanders, even the Quan Alexanders dealt with an injury, and I think Noah Spence, one of their defensive ends, is out. They have Vernon Hargraves. They have I forgot the rookie who picked up Brady, but they have him. He's been playing pretty well. You have Mike Smith, a veteran defensive coordinator. You got Jameis Winston. You got Mike Evans. You got Deshaun Jackson. You got a double-headed monster tight end combo in Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. And the fact that this team only has 2 wins in 7 games is absolutely sad. I look at, the Bucks, and it's kind of like the Saints, who really, on paper, besides Drew Brees, they really didn't add anybody spectacular. Look, they let go of Brandon Cooks. Their defense, has played extremely well, and they've won 5 straight games for the first time since 2013. And the thing I like about this Saints team is that they just consistently, they're underrated. Like, people don't look at the Saints and say, man, what they've been doing is impressive. But the fact that they beat the Panthers, 34-13, they have a shutout against the Dolphins. They were up 45-10 on the Lions, and then that was the only time over the last 5 weeks I've seen that Saints defense revert to the Saints defense we've seen over the last few years. But the Saints, I just feel like, again, they have an offense that can pop, and they have a defense that at times can be, good enough to get to the Super Bowl and is a bit underrated. So when I look at this matchup, can Tampa win this game? It's a division game, sure, and Tampa can, have one of their moments if their offense is clicking that they can go for a shootout. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, Jameis Winston put up over 300 yards and 3 TDs on the Bills, and unfortunately, Adam Humphries cost them the game. So this Tampa team can explode at any moment with their offense. And that's what I'm going to trust to take the Bucks against the spread. It's a division game. The Bucks, they're trying to have some motivation, and the Saints defense at any time, maybe especially at home against the division rival, can look like the old Saints defense. However, with that being said, the Saints have been able to consistently been able to grind out games like this, and just of how the Saints are playing, I feel like, again, the Saints will be able to make a couple more plays that the Bucks can't, or the Bucks will make 1 or 2 more mistakes that will cost them the game against New Orleans. This is going to be a great game, and I think, this should be one of the Sunday night games, along with the Panthers and the Falcons. But I'm going to take the Saints here just because you got to keep rolling with the team that shows every week they're playing better defense, and the offense can contribute to what they need to in order to get victories. So that's how I like Tampa Bay here +7, but New Orleans straight up. Next game, the Rams over the Giants. The LA Rams are 5-2 for the first time since 2003. It is the best record they've had since then, and that year they went 12-4 and went to the NFC divisional round to lose to the Carolina Panthers. And I'm taking the Rams here because the Giants are just bad. I thought, you'd think, well, hey, look, the Giants got to win over the Broncos, the hapless Broncos that really couldn't move the ball. Well, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Denver Broncos implode since then, and we're just saying, well, the Giants just got the Broncos at their beginning of the end. The next week against the Seahawks, yeah, they made the game competitive, and the Seahawks made some dumb, gutsy calls, which they make at least 1 or 2 of those every couple games a year. But this Giants team is still pretty bad. And with the fact that the Rams are rested coming off a bye, they're having to come across the country, which, can be a pain, especially for West Coast teams. I think, again, the Rams are going to be rested. They have a defense that can shut down Darkwa and Perkins, and the Rams secondary can definitely hold their own and probably shut out the Giants receivers because nobody knows them, and Eli Manning's just going to have another rough day. Do I think the Giants, could they surprise people? Sure. I think if the Giants can, find any rhythm, it's going to throw people off. And they could win just because that's kind of the shocking part. Because nobody thought they could beat Denver. But they did. But I just think, again, the Rams, they've proven to be more consistent. And I think giving rest to a young team is a better thing, especially for this kind of team, compared to not giving them rest. I think for the LA Rams, this is one of those moments where they can, continue to solidify their status, get another huge road win on the East Coast, and prove that they can travel coast to coast at a pretty good clip, and move on to 6-2 and get ready for their next game, which I believe is against. I'll have to look. But I know the Rams have a big game coming up the next weekend, so we'll see. But that's why I like the LA Rams here -3.5, and the LA Rams straight up. Also, Janoris Jenkins is suspended for this game. He's probably not going to play. So if you lose your best corner off his own suspension, that's not good for the Giants. Sounds like the Rams are -3.5 and the Rams straight up. Next game, the Eagles over the Broncos. The Broncos are starting Brock Osweiler. Trevor Siemian, the Trevor Siemian or the Homo Simeon experiment is over. And I believe that the Denver Broncos need to move on from both Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. They need to get a veteran quarterback in there. I would recommend an Alex Smith from Kansas City. Alex Smith is a veteran that will know how to adapt to a system. He's a phenomenal game manager, probably the best one in the NFL. And then you can have Chad Kelly watch behind him, and it's basically Patrick Mahomes all over again. Just because Brock Osweiler has shown to you throughout the last couple stops in his career, he wasn't even good enough to stay on the Texans or the Browns roster. Look at that. Not even the Browns wanted to have him. And I guarantee you, he would play better than Deshaun Kaiser. He'd play better than Cody Kessler. He would play better than Kevin Hogan. That's how bad the Browns are. I have that much confidence to say he's better than all of them right now. And if the Browns look dumb for not keeping him. But, when you look at the Broncos, maybe Osweiler, he has familiarity, especially with Mike McCoy, or he has a little familiarity with Mike McCoy. And I think he'll do a good job. But they're playing a Philadelphia team right now that is the best team in the NFC. Ronald Darby is expected to be back in 2 weeks. I wouldn't mind seeing him play against Denver. But with that being said, with the Broncos only scoring 2 offensive TDs on the road the entire year, Philadelphia being, absolutely consistently dominant, having, 33-10 wins at home. They had a nice, decisive win over the Redskins. They also, were able to just be a consistent team. I'm going to take the Eagles here. Obviously, getting Jay from the Miami Dolphins helps the Eagles because I feel that he's a guy that's a better pass catcher. The only problem I have is, why did they get Jay Ajayi? Because LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi are essentially the same runner, except Ajayi can catch more balls. And if it's that important for the Dolphins to have that kind of size and pass catcher, that's a bit surprising. Because you have Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood. Clement's a better pass catcher, and Wendell Smallwood's a good change of pace back. But with that all being said, I'm going to take the Eagles to beat the Broncos just because I think Osweiler will do better. Osweiler, has been in that system. He's more experienced. He knows how to play in these types of games. But just knowing how Philly's been playing this year, one of the better defenses in the NFL. Their secondary, even though they've lost, one of their big assets is Darby, and they don't have Sidney Jones either, they're still able to make plays. And Brock Osweiler, at the end of the day, will be Brock Osweiler. And there's going to be a moment where he hits his wall in the game. He's going to make a couple mistakes. They give the Eagles the big opportunity to win. The only reason why I'm taking the Broncos against the spread is I trust that defense to put a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I'll say in that game, I'll go 20-13 Philadelphia wins. So that's how much confidence I have in that defense, that they can hold the game within a touchdown. However, I think the Eagles' defense will do a better clamping job than the Broncos' defense. So that's all, like Denver +8 and Philadelphia straight up. Next game, the Titans over the Ravens. And for all the Titans fans, you can get on me, and say, you just called, your team plain white bread with butter, that we're dull. But you know what? I'm going to take you guys to beat the Ravens. Just because what I saw out of the Baltimore Ravens is not the Ravens team I have seen all year. That was an anomaly. That was an outlier. We are not that good. And I'm sorry any Ravens fans that watch this, and you can call me a hater, or, you're going against, you're being, too unprideful, being too objective, have some confidence. I'm sorry. I've watched this team all year. That was an anomaly because before that point, we'd only scored 1 offensive TD in 3 of the last 4 games since then. Do I think that the defense, can hold the Titans offense? Sure. Corey Davis hasn't played, but he should be able to play this week. We can, try to hold Murray and Henry to modest gains. But just knowing how the Titans are, they're rested. They've had a pretty good home record. I believe they've won 8 of their last 9 home games. And I just think, again, the Titans just have a consistency that I've seen that is better than ours. Like, we've had phenomenal games where we were decisive, and then just really bad games where we got dominated. The Titans have really had games where, besides the Houston game, they've basically been in all their games, or they had, close losses in their games. The Ravens have been blown out once. They had a decisive loss against Pittsburgh, and then we had we had a really bad loss against the Bears off the last-second field goal, and then the Vikings lost. That was just a dominating performance, even though the game ended up only as an 8-point game, or is only a 8-point game. I'm excited for this game because you got two teams here that are fighting for that 6th spot. I think the Titans are in a better spot because they're fighting for the division, and even if they lose, they're not out of it. However, I think for the Ravens, with the Steelers kind of rolling as they are at 6-2, if we drop to 4-5, that means we are 2.5 games back, and I don't think the Steelers are going to drop that lead, so we can just basically give up on the division and basically try to, crawl way up back to the wild card charts. And I feel like getting into that 7 or 6 spot is better than being outside at like 8-9, knowing that there's a couple teams in front of you that have better schedules and better opportunities. So that's why I like Baltimore here, plus 4.5. I'm going to take the Titans straight up. Next game, the Cardinals over the Niners. Jimmy Garoppolo, welcome to San Francisco. They got a 2nd-round pick for you, and I commend the Niners for doing that because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch saw the writing on the wall, and I'm going to say this again. They knew that an 0-16 season, if C.J. Beathard was their starting quarterback, was very well possible. And yes, do you think, would that have been harsh for a team that was completely rebuilding to fire him after 1 year? Yes, it would be. And people were talking about last week how, Tom Landry went 0-14. Jimmy Johnson went 0-8. And then Bill Walsh went 0-7. Here is the thing, though, and I will say this, people and all the Cowboy fans and all the Cowboy historians, you could say I'd be nuts for firing Tom Landry. But I would. Tom Landry, his first year, I think went 0-10-1. He lost every game his inaugural season. If I was the Cowboys owner back in 1960, I would have fired Tom Landry because I can't understand how people can accept no success. None. A big donut. I don't understand that. And even for a first-year guy, that's all I'm asking for. I get that, Rome wasn't built in a day. You have to take time. But at least if you can show, hey, we can win a football game, we can say, hey, you did your job once, right, in a 10-16, back then 11-game, 14-game, 16-game season. That's the thing. People were like saying, those guys, Kyle Shanahan's okay. Remember, Bill Walsh ended up going 2-14. He ended up getting 2 wins, and Jimmy Johnson ended up beating the Washington Redskins with their backup quarterback in 1989 on Monday Night Football. They got their win, and that's all they needed just to go into the next year. So that's the thing. Like, for all those people that are, angry, or they're angry at me, for wanting Shannon to get fired. Think about the move they just made yesterday, as the reason why. Because I think they realized if they went 0-16, that would be a really hard end of the year interview to go into your boss and say, yeah, Jim Tom Sula was better than me. Chip Kelly did a better job than I did. And again, how many years was Jim Tom Sula given? 1. How many years was Chip Kelly given? 1. And for Kyle Shanahan to be staring down an 0-16 barrel, that's not good. I think that's the biggest reason why they made that trade. However, he is not playing this weekend. C.J. Beathard is the starter. I get it. He just came in Tuesday. It's really hard to, ask, a quarterback, hey, 6 days, can you learn a new system? Even though, again, I think the Niners could fall into the Jacoby Brissett trap. I think a lot of people would agree. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, in the 4 days he's learning the system, would be better than C.J. Beathard over the full season. But they're going to go with Beathard, and I hope Shanahan has enough common sense soon to play him. Because he said he said yesterday, well, Jimmy may not play this year. And I'm like, really, Kyle? If you're going to have C.J. Beathard start the rest of the year, that's a really bad sign. And Jimmy Garoppolo, at even 60% of the Niners system, is better than C.J. Beathard right now at 120%. So, but that's why I'm taking the Cardinals. I think, again, could the Cardinals lose this game? Sure, it's Drew Stanton. But Drew Stanton for the Cardinals has been a decent veteran backup quarterback. He's been there for a few years. And I remember the last couple years, he was able to beat the Niners in a couple games for them. And I just think, again, with Beathard starting, Stanton will do his job one more time to get the Cardinals another meaningless win to get to 500 again. And by the way, the Cardinals are not a good 500 team. So that's why I like Arizona here, -2.5, and Arizona straight up. Next game, Seahawks over Redskins. The Seattle Seahawks, they added 3-time Pro Bowl left tackle Dwayne Brown in exchange for a 2017 5th-round pick and 2018 5th-round pick and 2019 2nd-round pick. They were going to get Jeremy Lane as well, but he failed his physical, so he's back with the Seahawks. I believe he intentionally failed that physical just so in order that he can stay with the Seahawks, because I don't think he wanted to go to Houston to deal with being in that defense and that secondary. But when I look at the Seahawks, they are the second best team in the NFC in my opinion, the biggest challenger to the Philadelphia Eagles, and Russell Wilson is an MVP candidate. He threw for a career high in yards, he tied a career high in touchdowns, and he played one of the best games of his career, and he accounted for all the yards that's of Seattle's offense except for 3 of them. And they're playing a team in Washington that the Kirk Cousins phenomenon is coming back again. Kirk Cousins, I will say it, he is a good quarterback statistically. He can throw the football, he can win you a couple games, and he might get you a surprise victory here and there. But Kirk Cousins is not a franchise quarterback, and the Redskins fans saw that on Sunday. He committed 2 horrible blunders, especially the pick 6. Franchise quarterbacks don't throw game-sealing, game-ending pick 6s, even though I know it was a bit tipped. But still, Cousins could have tried to make a little bit more of an effort on the tackle. A little bit. I might have to watch it again, but still. I just think, again, Kirk Cousins is going to go on this little streak here of games, and if he falls to 3-7, which I think is very well possible, all the Redskins fans are going to have to realize, hey, this is not our guy, and we are not going to pay $27 million or $28 million to keep Kirk Cousins for a 500 record. I don't care about his numbers. I don't care about his talent. If you pay that guy that much, he has to get you at least a winning record in playoff appearances at some time just off his own ability. Forget everything else. Forget the running game, forget the offensive line. That's on him, in my opinion, if you're going to pay him that much. So, I'm going to take the Redskins here against the spread because Earl Thomas probably won't play, and he is the quarterback of that defense. But Seattle should win this game. Seattle's been dominant at home. They found their offensive identity. They should be able to run the ball a bit better. And I just think, again, the Redskins, they're just going to get in their own way. And just going into the 12th man, that's a really hard place to play. And I'm going to trust the Seattle Seahawks to win that game in a pretty confident pick. That'd be a lock of the week. And I haven't done locks of the week in a while, so I'll do a couple right now. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks as a lock of the week. I will take the Houston Texans as a lock of the week. And my other lock of the week, I will go with the LA Rams as my lock of the week. So my 3 locks of the week: Seattle over Washington, the Rams over the Giants, and I will take the Texans over the Colts. All right, next game, Chiefs over Cowboys. Simple. No Zeke against this Chiefs defense. No W for Dallas. Zeke is probably going to get suspended for 6, or his suspension has been reinstated. It's going to be for 6 games. I don't think they're going to do that much. And going up against a Chiefs team that even if he played, the Chiefs defense could, do a decent job of trying to contain Elliott. And I just don't think Dak, with the weapons he has, with Peters, with Sorensen, with Ron Parker, with how that defense gained some motivation, they caused a lot of turnovers. I think the Chiefs will be able to hold on. With Alex Smith, who doesn't turn the ball over. He's only committed 1 turnover the entire year, which is really impressive. So yeah, just with that, no Zeke, no W for the Chiefs. For the Cowboys. No Zeke, no win for Cowboys. So that's why I like KC here in a pick'em, and KC straight up. Next game, the Raiders over the Dolphins. The Oakland Raiders have been one of the more disappointing teams. I would call them the AFC version of disappointment of the Buccaneers. I think everybody thought this Oakland Raider team was a Super Bowl contending team, definitely a playoff team, definitely a division contending team. But as we've seen this year, it's a whole different year. Derek Carr isn't playing up to his $125 million salary. He's had, another couple interception game. He's thrown 6 interceptions this year already. He only threw 6 interceptions all of last year in the 15 games he played. They can't really run the ball. The offensive line isn't playing that well. The receivers aren't catching balls. And I think Jack Del Rio, he should be fired after this year. It was kind of dumb that they gave him this extension, but I think he has to get fired because the expectation for this Raider team was supposed to be at least a playoff team at the very least, as a wild card, a division winner, and a Super Bowl contender. And to be 3-5 and likely out of the playoffs at this point, it's unacceptable, and it didn't meet the standard of what Raiders fans thought was going to happen. And I think Jack Del Rio deserves to go. Because, to see that and to just see some of the decisions they've made, is some of that on talent? Sure. Marshawn Lynch hasn't done anything, but this Raiders team, I just think, again, you need a new voice in there. And you need an offensive mind, because Jack Del Rio's defense, it's obviously not coming through with his coaching, and it's not going into Ken Norton, who still has one of the worst defenses in the NFL, even with all that talent of the Khalil Macks, the Carl Josephs, the Bruce Irvins, the Sean Smiths, the Garyon Connollys, all those guys, and they still have a horrible defense. But I'm going to take the Raiders here because the Dolphins have no offense. I really don't want to watch a Sunday Night Football game, and I look at this Raiders-Dolphins game and say, okay, at least, the Raiders can move the football. And the Dolphins, I don't know. If you ask Jay Cutler to throw the football 35, 40 times, he'll at least give you 1 or 2 turnovers. Maybe 3. So I think with the Raiders being able to capitalize on that, and just, the Dolphins' defense being demoralized by their offense, I think the Raiders should be able to win this game. If the Dolphins can force a couple turnovers themselves, they might be in this game because the Dolphins at the weirdest times have been able to pull out victories they should not have pulled out. But I'm going to take the Raiders here because I've seen the Raiders. They have potential and they have the talent to make big plays, while the Dolphins just gave up their biggest playmaker to the Eagles. So that's why I like Oakland here -3 and Oakland straight up. Finally, the Lions over the Packers. The Lions played a really interesting game on Sunday night. They kicked 5 field goals, but they had 458 yards of offense. And if Jim Caldwell did not call for a 4th and goal play with $1:25 left in the third quarter, the Lions could have been up by 1 point entering the fourth quarter. But with that being said, I think the Lions, they gained some confidence. They caused a couple turnovers on the Steelers, and just knowing what, no Aaron Rodgers and the Lions, for the fact that they've only won 2 times in the last 27 or 28 years at Lambeau, the last 25 or 26 years at Lambeau, I believe the Lions get this win. Just because I think the Lions showed you that they can play pretty well defensively against a team that Brent Hundley will struggle with, and I think the Lions can, move on this Packers defense enough to score touchdowns and be able to, have a nice lead that the defense can carry them the rest of the way through. So those are my thoughts, comments, and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. If you have any questions about any of the games, any questions about the trade deadline, any questions about NFL topics in general, please put them in the comments section. I would love to know everybody's thoughts. Also, please check out the NFL YouTube prognosticators page. Guys like Johnny Barecki, Keith Bailey, Geo Knows, Hatbox Nation, Bridgewater's Finest, Half Moon's Picks, the Stuart Madison Show, I'm trying to think of Logan Schiff, all those guys, please check them out. They're all great prognosticators like me that give out weekly predictions for all our fans to talk about. Andrew Warren, all those guys, please check them out. They're all great people and great progs that love talking about football and giving out predictions every week, just like me. So that's it. So good luck to all the players, coaches, teams, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. Until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until then, so long.